All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are talking about one of the most audacious, some might even say crazy, corporate bets we've seen in a long time. We're talking about MicroStrategy, a company that decided to go all in on Bitcoin. And look, this isn't just some side investment. This is a move that has totally reshaped the company from the ground up, and you better believe the entire market is watching to see what happens next.
And to really get your head around just how massive this idea is, you've got to look at this quote from MicroStrategy's founder, Michael Saylor. He's not just talking about buying some crypto. No. He's talking about building a whole new financial system. So what on earth does digital credit on digital capital even mean? And how could that possibly be a multi-trillion-dollar idea? Well, that's what we're here to unpack.
Okay, so first up, MSTR's unconventional bet. Let's get into how a software company just completely flipped the script on itself.
So, at its core, the strategy is actually pretty simple to understand. Think of a company's treasury like its savings account. It's usually full of safe stuff, like cash. Well, MicroStrategy basically took that savings account and swapped it all out for Bitcoin. The entire company is now built around this one digital asset. Now, you'd think this would just make their stock a mirror of Bitcoin, right? Well, yes and no. As we're about to see, its unique structure means it can behave in some really surprising ways.
And here's where things get really fascinating. Check out this chart. This was during a pretty brutal time in the market, right? Bitcoin fell about 4%. But look at MSTR stock. It only dropped 2%. Now, this is exactly what supporters of the strategy point to. They call it relative strength. It's this idea that even when Bitcoin itself is taking a hit, the way MSTR is structured can act like a bit of a shock absorber. I know, it seems like a small difference, but believe me, in this world, that's a huge deal.
All right, next section. A market turning point? You know, MSTR strategy doesn't happen in a bubble. And a pretty massive signal just came from the crypto giant Binance that could be an absolute game changer.
Okay, so why is this Binance news so important? Let's set the scene. A few months back, a market glitch at Binance kicked off this cascade of liquidations. It was a nightmare. For the next 4 months, there was just this relentless selling pressure. I mean, every single time Bitcoin's price tried to recover, it just got slammed right back down. And then, bam, January 31st, the bombshell drops. Binance announces it's converting $1 billion of its own cash into Bitcoin.
And here's the why behind it, straight from the horse's mouth. This is their own words, and you can bet Michael Saylor was all over this quote. For one of the absolute biggest players in the entire crypto world to come out and say this, especially after months of total chaos, well, that's a massive signal of their long-term belief.
So, this raises the billion-dollar question, literally. Why now? Why make that move at that exact moment? And the way the market interpreted it was pretty clear. There's no way Binance would throw $1 billion into the ring if they thought the brutal sell-off was going to keep going. This was them planting a flag, basically saying, we think the worst is over. And for a company like MicroStrategy, whose entire fate is tied to Bitcoin, that's like seeing the cavalry coming over the hill.
Okay, so let's talk about the blueprint. How does MicroStrategy's model actually stack up against what other companies are doing? There are basically 3 ways to play this.
This table breaks it down perfectly. Think of it like 3 levels of commitment. First, you've got the soft play. This is where a company dips its toe in the water, just holding a little Bitcoin in its treasury. Then you have the hybrid model, where a company is trying to balance a Bitcoin strategy with its normal, everyday business. But then you have the pure play. And this, my friends, is MicroStrategy. Their entire business model, their whole identity, is now completely wrapped up in their Bitcoin strategy. They are the poster child for going all in.
All right, now we get to the grand vision. Because you have to understand, this isn't just about stacking up Bitcoin in a company bank account. Oh no. This is about a plan to challenge the very foundations of the entire global financial system. Yeah, it's that big.
And this slide right here gets to the absolute heart of it. Think about how the financial world has always worked, right? The old world. Banks lend you money, that's credit, based on physical things you own, like gold or a house. What Saylor's talking about, his killer app, is doing that exact same thing, but in the digital world, issuing digital loans based on digital capital like Bitcoin. It's not just an upgrade, it's a complete rewrite of the financial rulebook. So just how big is the pie they're trying to get a slice of? We're talking over $450 trillion. I mean, that's a number so huge it's almost impossible to comprehend. That's the size of the entire global capital market. That's the prize they're after. This isn't some small niche play. This is a direct shot at competing on the biggest financial stage on the planet.
So what exactly is this digital capital competing with? Well, take a look.
We're talking real estate, art, gold, private and public stocks, bonds, basically everything. The fundamental argument here is that Bitcoin can be a better, more secure place to store value than any of these things we've used for hundreds of years. And that right there is the breathtaking scale of MicroStrategy's bet.
Which brings us to the final section, the endgame. Look, when you make a bet this bold, this all or nothing, there really are only two ways it can end.
So let's just ask the question head on. When a company wagers its entire future on one single famously volatile asset, where does that road possibly lead?
And here they are, the two paths, laid out in black and white. There's really no in between. Outcome number 1. The bet fails, the whole thing goes south, and the company bleeds out capital until there's nothing left. Outcome number 2. The vision becomes reality. The world starts adopting Bitcoin as a go-to asset, and its price gets pushed to what's described as incredible heights. It's hero or zero. There's not much room for anything else.
And this final quote, man, it just brings everything home. It perfectly captures the entire philosophy driving MicroStrategy. The idea is that in the world we live in today, the biggest risk isn't that you bet on Bitcoin and you're wrong. No. The real risk is that you sit on the sidelines, do nothing, and miss out on a once-in-a-generation shift in how the world thinks about money. And that, ultimately, is the massive question at the heart of this entire strategy.